I'm not saying I want this to happen, I'm just saying it's a possibility. Goldberg could be getting his final match, final retirement tour in WWE.
Oh, dear God, no!
The question is, who would be his opponent or opponents? Not a handicap match. It's like maybe there's more than one. We're talking about this because obviously Goldberg made an appearance in WWE's Bad Blood. He was in the audience. He had his son Gage there. The World Heavyweight Champion Gunther came out. He started chirping Goldberg and talking about Bret Hart. Goldberg jumps the barricade. He almost slips, and then they get the pull apart there. And so it started to get people talking, obviously, of Goldberg coming back to the company for one final match. Triple H talked about his press conference afterwards about how he talked to Bill backstage, and he was kind of whatever. He was kind of waffling on it, and then he seemed like he gets a spark of fire in his eyes later that day. Well, probably because he's got a ton of adrenaline, and these guys they always want to go for one more time. So naturally, one of the opponents for Goldberg could be Gunther. This would make a ton of sense. Gunther is just running his mouth lately. I actually really like it. And if I have to have a Goldberg match in my life, then I think Gunther is an excellent opponent. I do not need Goldberg to beat Gunther, especially as he's World Heavyweight Champion. But if it was Vince McMahon, I wouldn't have been surprised if Goldberg won the world title, just like they did with like The Fiend before. So in this era, and with Goldberg at the end of his career, and has talked publicly about how he wants to have a retirement tour of sorts, I think WWE could do that and give us just a quick little 3-minute Goldberg match. Now comment below, let me know what you guys think. If you did Goldberg versus Gunther, would you do it at like Survivor Series? I see a lot of chatter about that because obviously we just finished up Bad Blood, but I'm thinking it's Goldberg, and at his age, and he's talked about it in interviews in the documentary series and stuff, about like all the training and preparation that goes into it. So if Goldberg's gonna get ready for one more match, even though it'd only be a couple of minutes, I feel like he needs a lot more time to prep for that. So if I did get Goldberg versus Gunther, I don't see it at Survivor Series. I could see them waiting till WrestleMania. Now hear me out. If you did this match, and again, it's like 3 minutes and everyone's gonna be like, hey, we don't do that to Gunther, or some people are gonna say, squash him, Goldberg. Some people apparently don't like Mr. Gunther. The world title would need to be out of the picture. I would need the world title in this little scenario here to be gone from Gunther. Maybe it's Drew McIntyre picks it up before WrestleMania. Because here's the thing. If Goldberg is gonna be that guy, and he's gonna fight Gunther, to me, that's almost the Brock Lesnar spot. Because remember, we were supposed to get Brock versus Gunther. That was rumored for last year, and then things happened with Brock, connecting to the Vince McMahon stuff. And so we didn't get that. And I feel like they could give us something like that for WrestleMania 41. Drop the title to, say, Drew McIntyre or Seth Rollins. They go off with Punk and doing that whole thing for WrestleMania for the world title. What do you do with Gunther? You have him going up against Goldberg in his retirement match at WrestleMania, and it's like 5 minutes long. I mean, the entrances alone would be 3 to 5 minutes, so Goldberg's on TV for like 10 minutes. And you could do that match, and you could have Goldberg hit a spear, maybe try to get him up for a jackhammer, but you end up with Gunther getting the win. Gunther looks strong, and then you could see Gunther running shop across everything. Because look at the accolades he would be able to say at that point if he beats Goldberg, depending on if you feel like that's a big accolade. But you would say that he is Intercontinental Champion, longest reigning one. He's World Heavyweight Champion. He won King of the Ring. Probably wins the Crown Jewel Mega title. So if he does that, and then he could be the one to say, I retired Goldberg. But hey, it would be a quick few minutes. Goldberg loses. He bows, he waves, he picks up his son, even though he's like a giant now, and then they celebrate in the ring. Everyone says, thank you, Goldberg, and he's officially retired. I can totally see them doing something like that. I think Survivor Series is a little too close, and I think that the War Games and the Bloodline, all that, is the biggest story. I don't know if that's too soon. Also, Gunther ain't dropping that world title at like Survivor Series. He's still gonna hold on to that bad boy. So I think that's too soon. Okay, another opponent. And if you guys enjoy the videos like this, do me a favor, because we have like 80% of you you check out the video for a few minutes, but then we don't hit subscribe. So help me out if you can. Hit the subscribe button. It's totally free and it helps us out and helps us grow. The next opponent of who you could see against Goldberg is going to be Braun Breaker. And there's very good reason for this in my logic. The reason is Braun Breaker was on Raw the other night and he was dishing out spears to Jey Uso. He's back as a heel that only lasted a minute where he went kind of babyface, and now he's just smashing Jey Uso left and right. But the reason why I say Braun Breaker is because commentary, Joe Tessitore, kept saying it was a super spear. He's dishing out super spears to everybody. I can see them doing spear versus super spear. Goldberg versus a Steiner. WCW Mayhem. They could definitely do this, and it's an excellent spot for Braun Breaker. It elevates him a ton. I know it's Goldberg, everybody, but it does elevate him to get a massive spotlight like that. And you can run parallels between these two guys. Braun Breaker is a tremendous athlete who can have 10, 15-minute matches, like can go a long time. But on paper, you can kind of compare the two in that they both got spears. They both resemble each other a little bit, similar style and athletics, but you know what I mean? Like Goldberg in his prime versus Braun Breaker now, that'd be a lot of fun. I don't know how it would be right now, but you could do that match anytime. You could do Braun Breaker versus Goldberg at Survivor Series for retirement. You could save it for the Royal Rumble. If Braun is still doing all of this stuff with the IC title, maybe at some point that's going to fizzle out. And then before he gets ready to go off for the world title, maybe he checks off his list. He retires Goldberg. Also, that helps Braun Breaker get a little bit more of a rub as much as there's left in Goldberg, and then that can elevate Braun a little bit more into the world title scene to say, hey, I'm an IC champion dominating here and there. I've also retired a legend in Goldberg. They can use that for Braun Breaker to set him up even more. Gunther doesn't really need it. Braun Breaker could use it, I guess. And you could do that for WrestleMania, but you have more options. You can do Saturday night's main event in December as Goldberg's retirement. That'd be a big deal. Mania, Rumble, Survivor Series. They got Elimination Chamber in there too. I don't see that happening. Put Goldberg in a chamber. That'd be stupid. Between those two, I'd rather see Braun Breaker, to be honest. Now another opponent for Mr. Goldberg, Drew McIntyre. Drew is now done with CM Punk for a while. I think both of them are going to be off TV for a long time because they need to heal, number one. And maybe they're going to come back around together with Seth right around WrestleMania, maybe for the world title, you never know, or just a triple threat. But putting those guys out of the picture, I could see you could make a story and make a case. Drew McIntyre versus Goldberg. I think it'd be a killer match. Drew can carry all of the promos. You got two giant guys going at it. That could be a lot of fun. And once again, I mean, Drew could eat the loss to Goldberg if Goldberg wants to be the winner of retirement match. Because that's the thing. Because I don't know how Bill feels about all this stuff because I don't talk to him at all. So I don't know if Bill Goldberg would be sitting there going, I want match and I want to win the match. And then they'd say, well, who's gonna lose? Who could we afford to lose? Ain't gonna be Gunther. So you could do a Drew McIntyre, great heel, and you could put over Bill if Bill needs it. Now the next one could fall in line and be a lot of fun. It could be awful. It'd be once in a lifetime, everybody. You could do Goldberg versus John Cena. I was gonna say WrestleMania, but I don't want that because that'd be John Cena's final WrestleMania, and I don't want his final WrestleMania to be Bill Goldberg. But John Cena is on his retirement tour once they get around to the time of Netflix. And it'd be kind of cool if they did like Royal Rumble, maybe that's Bill Goldberg's last match. It's a big stadium show, and you could do John Cena versus Goldberg, one time only. I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Cena and Goldberg have ever crossed paths. Maybe they shouldn't, but I could see that match happening. Cena doesn't have these crazy long matches, and Goldberg, I don't think we've ever seen him do that. So you know what? You can have him come out on the premiere episode of Netflix, and you could set up that match and do it at the Royal Rumble. And then you got Cena and Goldberg, one time only, and it's 5 minutes long, and you got some attitude adjustments and some spears, and Goldberg could win that one because Cena doesn't seem to have any problem at this point putting anybody over. And you get a match like you never thought you would see. Maybe we don't need to see it. Now I want to circle back around here for just 1 second with you. Gunther, Goldberg. That feels most likely because of the interactions we saw at Bad Blood. But here's one more caveat that they could do if they wanted to do this at WrestleMania. And let's say the title is gone, like I said, and it's gone to CM Punk and to Seth, and that's WrestleMania match. And you got Gunther, and he's calling him street trash to Goldberg, and he doesn't like him. Here's the one thing they could do to make this even more epic and basically trolling Bill Goldberg. You put Bret Hart as the special guest referee at the WrestleMania match, Gunther versus Goldberg with Bret Hart and the stripes, and Brett could put Goldberg in a sharpshooter or something to give Brett some closure about Bill Goldberg. I think that's silly, but I also think wrestling is very silly and very awesome. What would you do if Goldberg's gonna come back for some sort of retirement? Location, where would he announce it, and who's the opponent? Hit me up. But guys, we got more to talk about when it comes to Final Boss and The Rock. Speaking of WrestleMania, click this video right here because we're breaking down everything that could happen with the Final Boss going in to the next year. Have a great day. See ya.